all of this know, all of the events that are going on today. There's at least 3 amendments that have been proposed by various Congress critters in the U.S. Congress. They're moving. A lot of cities and municipalities are passing resolutions. And Frederick Douglass had a wonderful quote that I always am reminded of, and it is, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." We are demanding. And your friends and your neighbors and your relatives, get them all. We need people, more and more and more. Once we get the numbers up there, that demand will really start to take hold and we can change things. The next and final speaker is I'm trying to think of his website right now. It's a really cool one. Activist guy or something like that, maybe he can mention it to us, who really helped really push and get this together. He's from Ithaca. His name is Victor Tiffany, a real jewel.
MoveToAmend.org is that website. I have a message today for Mitt Romney and his ilk. Corporations are not people. The Citizens United decision that gave corporations the freedom to spend unlimited amounts of money on elections and ballot measures without even disclosing that fact will likely prove as infamous as the Dred Scott decision of 1857. That decision declared that people, slaves, were property. Sadly, it took a civil war, 3 constitutional amendments, 100 years of enforced segregation and deprivation before the effects of that ruling were finally erased from our laws. Hopefully we will be spared from that kind of strife over the dangerous consequences of Citizens United. But unless citizens like you stand your ground, America will divide even more swiftly into winners and losers with little concern for the latter. Benito Mussolini once said, quote, "Fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism because it is the merger of state and corporate power." That's fascism, ladies and gentlemen. The major confrontation of our time is something clearly spelled out by the Declaration of Occupation issued by those who stayed in Liberty Plaza last year on Wall Street. It is the conflict between corporate fascists who want power for the corporate elite, the 1%, and those Democrats, us with a small d, who want power for the people, real people. Say it with me. Corporations are not people.
Corporations are not people.
Wealth acquired under capitalism is in and of itself no enemy to democracy. But wealth that is armed with political power is historically proven danger to the general welfare, which is proclaimed in the preamble of the Constitution as one of the justifications for the government's reason to be. Corporate power is a proven danger to we the people. So I have a message to American fascists today. No, we have a message to American fascists today, which is, again, corporations are not people. Today, people across the country are once again seeking to exercise their right to amend the Constitution to restore integrity to our democratic process. With Supreme Court decisions resting upon broad interpretations of corporate rights and a distorted view of the First Amendment, local, county, and state bodies are passing resolutions and introducing legislations that challenge the corporate narrative of undue corporate political influence. For example, November 8th last year in Montana, the citizens of Missoula voted in favor of a resolution rejecting corporate personhood with 75% of the vote. In early December, Los Angeles City Council unanimously passed a resolution calling for an end of corporate dominance over the civic process. In the words of LA City Council President Eric Garcetti, quote, "These resolutions are how American amendments move forward from the grassroots when Americans say enough is enough." That is to say, when Americans in a loud and clear voice say again, corporations are not people. Earlier this month, New York City City Council voted in favor of a resolution opposing that Citizens United decision, joining the growing ranks of city councils nationwide: Duluth, Minnesota; Oakland, California; Albany, New York; Boulder, Colorado. Early next month, we expect Ithaca Common Council to follow suit, since the anti-corporate citizen resolution is now on their agenda. We hope that Binghamton will soon join the list of cities passing these kinds of resolutions. Right now, there's a resolution in support of campaign finance reform in New York State before Binghamton City Council. Therefore, it is wise to wait until mid-February and then ask your city council persons to get on board in an effort to ask Congress to pass a resolution that, 1, abolishes corporate personhood, and 2, states that money is not a form of speech. These ideas have been embraced by Common Cause, who have made this year Amendment 2012. Sadly, both major parties have become almost one and the same because of the corrupting influence of money in politics. That is why this is a political movement, not a partisan effort. This is a movement against corporatism. This is a movement against fascism. This is a movement that proclaims to all who will listen, corporations are not people. After the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed by the Supreme Court, they addressed in 1873 in the Slaughterhouse case that these amendments do not apply to artificial persons. However, the corporatists roared back in the Gilded Age that followed that decade. Judges, state legislators, and parties that selected them, and editors who supported them, were purchased as easily as ale at the local beer house. Lobbyists roamed the halls of Congress offering gifts of cash, railroad passes, and entertainment. With government on the auction block, the notion of general welfare wound up on the trash heap. Grotesque inequality and poverty festered like an open wound on the underbelly of our nation, which should sound familiar to us in the new Gilded Age. Then came the utter judicial fraud that initiated corporate personhood. In 1886, a conservative, pro-corporate Supreme Court reporter distorted the Supreme Court's trivial decision on whether the Southern Pacific Railroad had to pay taxes on the fences that ran along their tracks in Santa Clara County. In the header notes, Bancroft Davis, the court reporter, wrote that the railroad was declared by the court to be a person, that corporations were persons. Header notes that have no standing in law, set off 126 years of corporations using the 14th Amendment in arguments before the Supreme Courts to attain more and more of the civil liberties that amend the Constitution in order to protect us, the people. However, that is not the doctrine that was used by the John Roberts Court in this Citizens United ruling. In that, they continued the legal lie that was outlined by Frank Ray, the myth that money is speech and therefore cannot be regulated. The court gave our corporate sovereign a sky-is-the-limit right to pour money into political campaigns for the purposes of influencing the outcomes. Worse, they can do so without even disclosure. The court may as well have inscribed farewell to the idea of fair play, farewell to free elections, farewell to representative democracy of, for, and by the people. It is democracy that is at stake here, and that's why the groundswell is rising up. In order to state with an informed and confident voice that corporate personhood is based upon a fraud perpetrated in 1886 by Bancroft Davis. If we're to save our democratic ideas, we must all stand with a unified voice that says money is not a form of speech, and, join me, corporations are not people. The ink was barely dry on Citizens United decision when the Chamber of Commerce organized a covertly funded front and fired volley after volley of missiles in the form of political campaign ads into the 2010 elections, eventually spending $75 million. Karl Rove's American Crossroads GPS seized on Citizens United to raise and spend $17 million donated from a small group of extremely wealthy Wall Street hedge fund and private equity moguls, all determined to water down the financial reforms designed to avoid a financial collapse like the one we had in 2007 that was due to their own reckless speculation that helped bring on the collapse in the first place. The corporate elite have the money. They have the political access. They have the influence. They have the media. And against such odds, discouragement would come easy. But if the generations before us had given up, slaves would be waiting our tables and harvesting our crops. Women would be turned back at the polling place, and it would be a crime for workers to organize. Like our forebears, we will not fix the broken system of America if we throw in the proverbial towel. Surrendering to fascistic plutocracy is not an option. We must and we will fight back against the forces pouring dark money into the political system. These corporate fascists have turned our democratic republic into a sewer. I hope that now you are ready to join what is the most promising way to counter Citizens United, a campaign for a constitutional amendment affirming that free speech and democracy are for the people and that corporations are not people. You think this is impossible? Not at all. We've already amended the Constitution 27 times. Amendment campaigns are how we have often made the promise of equality and liberty more real. Will this be difficult? Of course. Of course, as Frederick Douglass taught us, power concedes nothing without a struggle. To contend with power, we have formed Move to Amend effort to work together with Free Speech for People, Common Cause, the Occupy movement, and other groups nationwide in nonpartisan efforts to overturn Citizens United and the corporate rights doctrine that unduly leverages corporate power into political power. Next month, make it a point to contact your city council and encourage them to join cities around the country that are passing resolutions demanding Congress pass an amendment that unambiguously states money is not a form of speech and that corporations are not people. We have an election coming up. Bird dog these candidates when they have a press conference, when they have a speech, when they're making a public appearance. Go to them and ask them during their appearance whether they support an amendment that says corporations are not people and money is not a form of speech. Get a yes and no answer from them. And then publish that results in the paper. Go to WNBF and talk to them on the radio and tell them, you don't take a side, don't say vote for this guy, not for that guy, but just let the public know this candidate A supports the amendment, this candidate B does not. Just get this information out here. And if they have a debate, get to the news media sponsoring the debate and tell them you want this question asked during this debate. We must make this a central issue in this year's election. It's not a partisan issue. It's more than a political issue. It's a great moral issue of our time. If we condone political theft and we do not resent the kind of wrong and injustice that injuriously affect the whole nation, our democratic form of government cannot and will not endure. If we are to survive as a democratic republic of the people, by the people, and for the people, we must get it inscribed forever in our Constitution that elections are choices for we, the people, not they, the corporations, and the wealthy plutocrats to control. Our government must not be put up for sale. How to fight back is the message of this event. Leave here today repeating to yourself this indelible truth. Corporations are not people. Try it for yourself.
Corporations are not people.
Again, louder.
Corporations are not people.
One last time with conviction.
Corporations are not people.
Right on.
Thank you, Victor.
Wow.